Interested to find out more about soil health, I caught up with Charles Bourne from Westaway Sausages whilst he was in town visiting my neck of the woods. So Charles, thank you so much for stopping by. So I've obviously come to you to find out a little bit about how soil and food security link. But I think a lot of people will be wondering, if they know what you do, obviously sausages, Westaway Sausages, what the connection is between sausages and soil. So why is it that you're so passionate about this?
Well, to start with, I come from a very rural agricultural area. I live in heart of Devon, and it's a wonderful area, with lush river valleys, uplands. It's totally delightful, and we are custodians of that amenity. And so I have worked with the soil all my life, and soil is my inspiration. Actually, it is so important, and sausages are food, and food and how it relates to the soil are intrinsically important. They are hugely connected, and I actually think that soil and soil health can be one of the parts of the jigsaw that actually gives a solution to some of the environmental issues that we face at the moment.
Yeah, because without soil, we don't have food, right? I mean, it's integral.
Yeah. So, people talk about the circular economy. Everything starts with soil and everything finishes with soil, or so it should do. Mm-hmm. It's integral, and we live in an age where climate change is coming upon us, and soil can, to a certain extent, mitigate, or soil health can mitigate some of the effects of climate change.
Okay, so tell me about that. How is, it sounds like a great superpower for soil to have.
Well, I've got to be careful I don't come across as too environmentally wacky, but I've had my hands in soil literally all my life, and I grow my own vegetables, and I know the power of compost and the power of soils. And so if we say, okay, well, how can soil change climates? Or all I would say is that soil can lock up just huge amounts of carbon. Yeah. Soil health, if we have healthy, productive soils, then we can grow more food on them, and a healthy, deep-rooted soil can absorb far more water and hold more water. So flooding events, like we see in Bangladesh and places like that, where the soils have become salt affected, and so salt affected soils are now eradicating about 15% of the total UK farmland is being eradicated from the world's every year.
So how are we destroying our soil?
Right, many different ways. Okay, so climate change is one of the big issues. Mm-hmm. And then, we have excessive use of fertilizers. So, we're building up salts in the soil. We're working the soil effectively too hard. It's a constant production line. And farming isn't actually a production like an industry. It's far more artisan, and it works in a slightly different, it's a craft. And you talk to any farmer, and they will have a real view on this, and what works on their land might not necessarily work on somebody else's land. And if we're going to grow huge crops, monocrops of endless acres of soybean or something like that, we're going to lose that biodiversity, and the whole thing starts to become imbalanced. Soils that are salt affected, can be caused by polluted water. So if we haven't got naturally clean water, and so in this last summer in Europe we had some very bad drought, and so we were starting to pull grayer water, more polluted water. that ends up in the soil. And, salt-affected soils, become hard, compact when dry, and very sticky and difficult to work with when they're wet.
So it becomes an issue of not only are the crops that we're producing potentially unsafe or not as nutritious, but also a case of the soil itself is becoming a hostile environment to grow a crop within.
Salt-affected soils, yes, they have their own bioregime that will only grow certain things. And so one can see that in sub-Saharan Africa and places like that. And in actual fact, it doesn't take very much. So in the 1930s, which I wasn't alive then, I have to
Neither was I.
No, but we had the Dust Bowl in America.
Yeah.
And vast areas of Kansas, Texas, Central America, which used to be hugely productive, became virtually untenable because of a monoculture, excessive agricultural use. And fair enough, we've got far more knowledge now, and I don't think that type of thing arises, but there is the same principles are there. We need to look after that soil, because a society that doesn't look after its soil will ultimately destroy itself.
And when you say monoculture, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, is that where we're just growing the same kind of crops, or?
Yeah, so we're having prairie-style farms growing single crops that are dependent upon large amounts of industrial fertilizers. There's no biodiversity. There's no natural organic material getting into those soils. And we're putting huge amounts of energy into actually getting the fertilizer in the first place. There are other ways of doing it. And I think that food manufacturers can do things to actually relieve some of the pressure on soils.
Okay, let's explore that then. What kind of thing could they do to put you on the spot?
Yeah, no. Okay, well, look, I've got to be really careful here, but I am a normal human being. Okay, I promise. But I love my compost heap. Okay,
that's a quote.
And I come from Devon, and a lot of people grow their own vegetables and flowers and things, and composting is something we do. And okay, I'm lucky. I live in a rural community, but I do think composting can be very much part of that food circle, that green economy that where we're looking after the soil. So in the UK, I am amazed that we use nearly 1 million tons of plastic to manufacture, deliver our food in the groceries and the retailers and food service. What I've done is I've actually looked at that and found that not only can we use an uncoated card instead of plastic, we can do it in a cost-neutral way. And what's more, we've proven, we've done some 16 million packets of sausages. It could be packets of blueberries, it could be mushrooms, it could be whatever. What I'm saying is that the art of the possible, let's move away from plastic. And there's another benefit. In actual fact, a plastic tray has a flange and it's shaped. That is not space efficient. We need to think about every way that we can make food and drink more sustainable. And if we are moving these huge amounts of food and drink across the country, then if you use my style of packaging, you can fit 7 more pallets on a lorry.
Wow.
And all I'm seeking to do is, I think that I heard somebody at your business forum, right?
There you go, nice plug.
Yeah, but it was great. He said there was a Tesla-sized hole. And I thought that was a great It's something. I think there's a Tesla-sized hole
Yeah.
in the way that we make food and drink.
Yeah.
And those companies that have sustainability and they're passionate about it and they're innovating and they're collaborating with their supply chains to drive the sustainability further up the agenda, well, they've got a bright future. Yeah. And I think that, your generation here.
The 1930s generation.
No, I was going to say the Alphas and the Zs.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Actually are really interested in companies and brands that have those types of values and those types of stories. Yeah. And they want to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the root of the problem, look, there's a pun intended there, and the soil. I hear a lot of people talking about topsoil. Yeah. What is topsoil? Soil is obviously a complicated thing, but why is topsoil so important to food security and growing food?
Okay. So I have a field and it's on a slope.
Okay.
I have a field on a slope and it's down the hill like that.
Uh-huh.
If I put furrows in my soil, I plough my field and I till it, mm-hmm. and I go up and down the hill.
Yeah.
Then my topsoil will all end up at the bottom of the hill.
Okay.
And I'll have shillet at the top. And so topsoil is that if you like, the cream on top of the milk.
Okay.
And what we want to try and do is get healthy topsoils, the top 6 inches, all right, has to be super healthy. And what we really look for is not to deep till too often. And, it is about protecting the soil and making it work. And it doesn't have to be less productive. I think we just got to be, that's the clever bit. We've got to look after our soils, and and if we can actually set up, I'm passionate about composting, okay, and I love the fact we've moved away from plastic, but if we can use that nutrients and say we can set up in towns and cities community areas where people practicing circular economies and composting stuff correctly, mm-hmm. Then we could, it's being done in isolated areas around Europe, and it's been proven that it can work. Mm. And I'm a very realistic person. I have to have things proven to me, and the only way that I know this is right is by, not only is it, certified EN 13432, which is a universally recognized, accreditation scheme, but I know that it works in my compost heap at home. And you can compost with a window box, It can be fun.
I'll be trying that at home.
Yeah.
So, I just to sort of round up, there's the two R's, I suppose, let's call them, that are quite important. And we're talking about rewilding and regenerative farming. Mm. Now, I was somewhere the other day and someone mentioned rewilding and the whole room just not happy. So what is this? Is this the way forward? Should we be looking more to regenerative farming? How do the two, I suppose, differ?
Okay. Look, that's a huge subject.
Yeah, we can make another documentary on it. We can make another,
because, as I said before, that you can have a hill farm.
Yeah.
And you can have some river pasture land, and both of those have their own regimes. They're entirely different.
Yeah.
I like aspects of rewilding in the right places, and it's not being monetized in the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And I think, there are some fantastic pioneers looking at regenerative farming. I'm particularly interested in developing alternative substrates, not just to plastics, but now to wood pulp. So I'm looking now at rhizomes. These are plants which have very deep roots and crop every year that can produce wood pulp. And we can use that, we can grow those types of plants. They can build soils, they can build biodiversity. I can grow my packaging literally within my, next door to my factory in Devon. So those type, we need to be innovative, and we need to collaborate, and we need to think outside the box. We're living in a don't look up now moment, and ultimately it's soil. And it's quite difficult really to get a single thread that pulls through it all.
Yeah.
But we've got to look after our soils.
So it's more like a case of don't look down.
Yeah, exactly. Very good.
That's a sequel, right?
Love it. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Charles. It's been, really fascinating to hear why soil is so integral to food security. And it's great that you're so passionate about it as well. So thanks so much for coming down from Devon and visiting us in London.
Yeah, no, well, it's fascinating, and I look forward to seeing you down there, and I can give you a conducted tour around the veggie patch and see how it all works.
Absolutely.
Hello, well, this is our compost heap, and what's in it? Well, we've got a bit of hamster bedding, some packaging. Looks as though we've been buying something from that online retailer. Here's some plant fronds, a bit of sheep dagging down there. You can ask me about that later. A bit of food waste, and then later it becomes wonderful, actually pretty cool compost. And let's go and show you how we're going to use this compost. Okay, so we're in the polytunnel, and yep, it's seed time. So I'm using some of this compost and smooth it out, and then I'll put seeds in, and lo and behold, we have, look at that. I only planted those last weekend. Butternut squash just coming through, bit of tomatoes, leeks, some marigolds for the bedding plants, some sweet peas. What am I saying? I mean, compost, it is the future.
Episode 6 finds me at FDF's headquarters with Emma Piercy, Head of Climate Change and Energy Policy.